save you dough. What? 2 weeks for free at misfitathletics.com. You are listening to a podcast all about athlete IQ baseline testing. Phase 0 is 2 weeks long. So we made that free trial 2 weeks because we believe in what we do that much. We want to give that audition, sort of that job interview, from our side. Do you think that this is the type of program for you for the 2023 season? You can head to misfitathletics.com and try the entire Phase 0 for free. If you are on the affiliate side, if you go to an affiliate, if you own an affiliate, you can go to teammisfit.com and sign up for a free trial as well for our affiliate programming. Both programs are also the SugarWOD marketplace if that's what you're into. Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad in the house.
Yo.
What's up? It is games training crunch time right now. Austin and Caroline training in-house here. Final touches going into their training. You guys are
whipping boys.
Jumping into quite a few things.
Some.
Been
a busy couple weeks. It's also a little different now that luckily Austin is the crash test dummy with Caroline, as opposed to last year where that was a little bit more of
just you,
like our job.
It was quite a sight last week. There were 5 people doing a hour and a half Maffetone session, somewhere in that range, people, something like that.
Yeah.
There were enough machines for 46 people. I don't know exactly how you guys figured out that rotation. All of the machines were filling up that whole area, but that's just one of those things where like, I don't know. There's like a camaraderie kind of moment. It was cool to see everybody, multiple coaches coming back into the gym to do that and have that moment where, you look around and you guys are all there. And I'm sure that means a lot to Caroline.
Well, it speaks to Caroline's character too. Like, a couple of years ago, people maybe not have been like super excited to like stop the middle of their work day to go run on a treadmill for 90 minutes of all things to do with somebody. It's kind of easy to talk someone to, hey, you want to go do these snatch triples or,
sure,
you want to go climb some rope, but like, hey, let's go literally stare at his monitor for 90 minutes. And like, her willingness to like get people involved and bring them into the fold and be like, hey, I just like want like warm bodies to work out next to. It's really been really fun to like see that like growth of her own character and like how she's been able to rope the other coaches into like wanting to train with her and be exciting on her journey, because a huge part of this stuff is like the people that you surround yourself with. So it's been really fun to see how that like, it used to be just maybe you or I or Austin, or maybe you'd even jump in some of the like monostructural stuff. Now it's like, she's got like a stable of people she can rely on. Even some of the, our hatchet athletes in class, she'll call up and say, hey, I'd really like you for this power snatch muscle up piece. Can you come do it with me? And then next thing you know, there's people hanging out and doing double sessions on their normal training volume. So been fun to watch.
Yeah. And I'd be interested to hear from people on Discord about how they're feeling about these mixed machine maths and having them be significantly longer than the usual sessions, because there's a bit of a Maffetone like uprising happening next door at the gym. And really all it takes is a coach to say, hey, this is what this does. No one cares what your pace is. It's really just, we want you to stay at this spot. And it's actually one of the largest levers that we can pull for longevity. So it's not a score-based thing. It's let's all get together and your pace is your pace in terms of your heart rate. So that's been happening next door. And one of the coaches that came in to do the session with you guys, like had never done a Maffetone anywhere near that long, was like, I could have kept going. Like I could do this all day. Like it's good to have that feeling. And I think that's a massive mind shift between like, holy shit, a 22-minute AMRAP instead of 20. Like I thought 19 or 20 minutes was as long as we were going in here. That's the negotiation that we made. And obviously we've joked before about how like there always was the 10K run on main site back in the day. We just didn't do it.
Accurate.
So to have that mind shift and for people to be able to dig into that aerobic side, I think is just really cool to see. So if you're on Discord, discord.gg/Misfit Athletics to join us. Anyone can join. We share scores on there. People ask us questions. They ask each other questions, a really cool community. So head on there and let us know what you thought of the mixed machine math and going a little bit longer, because you getting the proof of concept and then telling us how you feel about it is how some of those longer sessions will make it, from my remote coaching programming sheet all the way to the blog, for everybody else.
Yeah, those success stories of hearing someone being able to turn what felt like, you'd asked us, even you or I, 10 years ago to go sit on a machine for 90 minutes, would probably be like, nah, what else you got? But to see that happening community wide and to see it change athletes' entire seasons and turn them from someone who's like, I'm like a barbell guy, or like I only do the gymnastics, to like just improving overall fitness. Big things are coming, and it's just, you have to put the hours in to see the benefits of that practice. But, big things are happening for people, all over the website because of what they've been doing, with these 45-minute to 50-minute to 60-minute to now hour and a half long sessions.
I always have to look at the back of the games t-shirt to remember the exact number of athletes. It's in the 10 range, but 9. Every single one of them, if you ask them, how do you keep improving? How did you make that move? For the last couple of years, it's definitely been those Maffetone sessions is one of the very first things that comes up. So today's podcast is all about athlete IQ baseline testing. And if you've been to a Misfit camp, if you listen to the podcast, if you read some of the stuff that we put out, we talk a lot about the athlete IQ. And one of the points of the triangle is experience. And what you experience as an athlete and what data you get from that, how you use it to move forward. And we harp on it so much that we've built in 2 weeks of athlete IQ baseline testing at misfitathletics.com. That starts this coming Monday, August 1st.
Correct. Yeah.
And what we want to talk about today is how an athlete could think about doing something like that, to take a period of time during the year and really set standards, refresh some numbers, maybe go into a specific stimulus and time domain and say, how do I improve on this? How do I get better? This is the thing where I know that's one of the main benefits of Discord. And one thing that we're really going to push during this phase 0 testing is compare scores on the short duration muscle endurance piece, because then you'll know this is the one that I need to get better at. And we're going to go into how you could figure out how to get better at that. There's actually a lot of answers to that question. It's not simple, but it'll be encouraging because it's not just go work as hard as you possibly can and then spit out the other side. So we're going to start with lifting. This is probably the simplest one. When you are doing athlete IQ baseline testing, you need to have your stable of 1 rep maxes figured out to be able to follow thoughtful progressions of percentages throughout a season. They need to be recent. You need to update them. We have people who make these massive jumps. We have people that used to, potentially weigh 50 pounds more than they do now, and they got into bodybuilding or powerlifting or whatever it is. Some of those numbers aren't really there. Was the range of motion there? Was the technique there back then? So we really want to refresh those numbers. And if you follow the blog with us for the 2023 season, you will have tests, you will have retests, but not every single lift, especially the more secondary stuff, is going to be tested throughout the year. So how are you supposed to go in and follow with those percentages? Someone with a strong athlete IQ would probably have a fairly good idea and would probably err on the side of going a little bit lighter and moving the barbell faster or with better technique. But this is information that you really need to know. And it's information that we ask you to have. Like if you're trying to figure out what program you're going to follow this season and you want to jump in with us, you get dropped into phase 1, week 3. You're going to need to know a lot of information to get the most out of the programming. You need to understand what the stimulus is. How good are you at it normally? You're going to need to understand what your 1 rep maxes are and these lifts. I mean, it could be push press, it could be split jerk, it could be any one of these different things. So making sure that you're updating that list, and the recommendation in phase 0 is within a year. I think that's fair. And again, super high athlete IQ, you might say to yourself, I've gotten a little bit stronger. I know I can overhead squat X. I think that's okay. But you got to go, within reason. Exactly. But we need to go in and fill in those numbers. And if you haven't done it within a year, asterisk being, if you haven't done it within a year, if you've never done it with decent form. So if you're one of those people that can muscle their way through a really ugly lift, and then that could be almost any of the lifts. There aren't that many lifts where like, it's like, oh God, what is that? Like maybe a bench press. Like probably it would be hard to do that. You know, you lift up with your left arm first and then your right arm, something terrible like that. But with the lifts, again, probably the simplest thing, but the asterisk is that we want you to move within a way where there is some sort of skill transfer. I think a really good example would be the back squat. See a lot of people do, you know, maybe even go super old school and go low bar. We want that back squat to mimic the first pull in your Olympic lifts, your front squat, your overhead squat, a lot of the positioning. So if you're really sitting way back into that position and then you wonder why when you shoot your butt back and you're clean, you can't catch in a position where you can stand up to your front squat, that's becoming more and more necessary. And it's almost as if it's like an Olympic lifting or a CrossFit back squat. It's not a traditional back squat. We really want an athlete sort of sitting between their feet. And again, skill transfer is king when it comes to lifts like that, because it's not really in the sport.
Yeah. How often do we get the opportunity, you know, outside of a quarterfinal or semifinal to test a 1 rep max and actually have it matter for your entire season, or like make a difference in how you perform or where you get to perform next if you're able to do it. So, you know, this is a hard thing for a lot of people to swallow, because that typically means, especially if you don't practice this way all the time, you're going to squat less, you're going to pull less, you're going to clean less, you're going to snatch less. But would you be more excited at the end of this entire package or this entire season if you place higher and are able to qualify for maybe the next stage of competition, and you are able to set aside your ego early in the season and go, you know what? Yeah, my best back squat's 445, but I was only able to do 415 this way. But then later on, it translates to performing at semifinals or qualifying for semifinals versus your season ending, you know, 6 weeks earlier because you refuse to make that change. It's a hard pill to swallow, but if you're willing to set aside your ego, get actual real numbers that then translate to the other movements, and you are, you know, you see the long game in this stuff, you're going to end up in a better place, having been a bit more conservative in the front half of your season, or being, you know, looking at the lifts through the lens of, does this actually look anything like the bottom of my clean versus this looks like a movement that's only performed, you know, in a powerlifting arena.
Yeah, I think there's two kind of sides to it. There's the training and the testing element, and as far as the importance of having kind of these baseline numbers, the training element is that just about every lifting session, whether it's mandatory or optional, save things like lunges or Romanian deadlifts or whatever, pretty much all the lifting is going to have percentages associated with it. So if you don't have that accurate 1 rep max that's both, you know, recent enough and, like you're saying, good, you know, with good movement mechanics, then obviously you're just kind of estimating, which is a little bit suboptimal. And
there's more room for wishy-washiness, or like, oh, how come only on that random Tuesday 6 months ago was I able to hit that lift, and how come I can never hit any of my percentage work?
Sure.
Like, it doesn't translate.
We do that. And then also like the in-WOD lifting, there's plenty of that happens over the course of the year. A lot of times that is something that's like tested and retested within the phase itself, but a lot of times it's not. Or if we're just trying to hit a different lift, understanding what you're capable of can inform your, you know, whether it's a scaling decision, a modification decision, or just like knowing that information, it's important. And then the testing side, like you said, how many quarterfinal athletes knew what they could actually overhead squat out of a rack? It's like not too many. Most of them either surprised themselves, or they were just like, yeah, I have no idea what I'm going to hit. I don't know. That seems pretty good. It's like, turns out it either was really good, or maybe it was like, holy fuck, why is the community so much farther ahead of me than in this? So it's, and just if you're only, if the first time you did an overhead squat max was, you know, when you're trying to get to a semifinal, that's just like, hey, that was free information that you could have had a lot sooner, to inform kind of how you were going to attack the other total, for example.
For sure. So the sort of two people that I can think of that would really need this information. The first person is, go on Discord and we see someone who isn't able to hit their percentages. We've emailed to a bunch of people the 20-week back squat progression. And what I put for instructions in there is, when you test your 1 rep max, it needs to look the way you want the back squat to look when you go back and watch your video. And I know that that can be challenging, but maybe you film every single jump once it gets heavy and you thought your max was 320 and 320, you're not exactly sure what that was. A little bit of good morning, little this, little of that, maybe a hip thrust after the good morning to finish it off. So you say, okay, 310 though, I looked really good, stayed really upright, drove through my legs, nice back squat. That's what we're going to base that on. And you can think about as skill gets more and more important in a lift, your snatch, your clean and jerk. If you have that day and you are the, hump and dump type of lifter, and it's like, holy shit, I caught it. That is not the lift that you want to use for your percentages. And then the other person that I can think of, we get athletes who are typically on the other side of lift well at higher percentages, but they're not happy with their 1 rep max. Unfortunately, what we see is athletes are going through their progression. They're going through the 6x3 at 70 and the 8x2 at 80, whatever it is. And because they feel good on that day, they go heavier, they grind, and not knowing that the magic happens when you walk into the gym that day, you're getting stronger and you smoke 80%. You pull it fast from the floor, you yank yourself under the bar, you stand up fast. That makes you stronger. You feeling good on a day and upping your percentage from 75 to 80 to 85. I know that you are sort of having that day where you're feeling really good about yourself and you're saying, I finally moved this weight for a triple. You are already the athlete that does pretty well at 85, 90, 95% when they make you do it in a ladder or something, or you just randomly have it, within a Metcon. You need to stay at those percentages and do that right. And again, not as closely related to the baseline testing, but that's the athlete IQ. That's what we do with the information. Those percentages are based on Russians being sent through every possible combination of lifts you could ever do, potentially some special supplements back in the day. We know what works for lifts. We know how those tables need to be adjusted for CrossFitters. We've been using you guys as guinea pigs for 11 years, somewhere in that range. So we know what works within that, and you have to be willing to say, okay, I want my 1 rep max to go up, so I am going to follow percentages and smoke them from phase 0 to phase 4 and actually make a change. These things take time.
Also a big part of the reason we have the percentage ranges as well. One of the coaches at our affiliate says, his kind of line is sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. And that's why, it's when it's 6x3 at 70, 65 to 75%. Sure. It's like, today's it's not feeling great for whatever reason. So I can be on the lower end of that percentage.
Oh, dropping the percentage. That's a good call. Dropping the percentage, thumbs up. If you got to do it, you got to do it.
Or if you are one of those athletes who can move a higher percentage of their max, assuming it looks good, then you have kind of that upper limit to push to, assuming, things are going well. But
the funny thing here is a lot we're doing is testing. Obviously, we're setting a baseline for where we are currently in our fitness level, but we're almost looking through that test through the training lens, meaning you need to be obsessed more with how things feel and look and how they transfer to other things. And the point that you already made about smoking a triple versus like smoking it, meaning in terms of like perfect technique, as opposed to maybe going on the higher end of the percentage, matters more because, again, if you're that athlete who is constantly obsessed with the only number that matters is what I get to put on SugarWOD, Discord, wherever I track my information is the number, not how things felt, that you're a step behind. You're like separating the men from the boys in this regard. Like if you're just only obsessed with what the number on the barbell is and what you get to put in the SugarWOD or whatever, and not with first pull felt great, finally stayed on my heels through the second pull. I felt actively like when I was pulling myself under the third pull, or like this is the easiest front squats I ever had when I stood up my cleans. That's the information that you need to start synthesizing and being obsessed about, because that's how you make long-term growth over the season. And if you're obsessed with that stuff, you best believe over the course of a couple of phases a season, that barbell is going to end heavier than it was, 6 months, 3 months, a year ago. And that is because you are so obsessed with the subjective feels of how things went across an entire phase. And you were obsessed with those little nitty-gritty details as opposed to just being able to put the biggest number, on the scoreboard.
Those are always the people who PR, like have a massive PR when it is like the open and quarterfinals. It's the person who actually spent the time, who's throughout the previous entire year had, you know, let's say 90% of their lifts were like really high quality, good lifts. They actually got the physical, like the literal and figurative reps in as far as doing the movement correctly. And then you've got the people who use that, you know, 1 rep max from a couple years ago, or the grindy, shitty 1 rep max. And it turns out all their percentage work was like, it was like pretty good, but it wasn't great. And then it's like, it's just inconsistent. And you wonder why the person who every single lift looked the same over the entire year goes into quarterfinals and smokes a 20-pound PR on a clean in the other total or something like that. So I think like is a big element of kind of trusting the process, so to speak.
It's hard too, because again, you're going to look around, you may see people putting up numbers that are significantly more than yours or times that are better than yours, but like that's just right now. The hard part is seeing the work.
The best way to make those numbers to go up is to lift like shit. So,
so for an athlete, it's right. We've been doing this for long enough that when an athlete comes to us and says, "I don't get it. Why isn't my clean and jerk where I want it to be? Why isn't my snatch where I want it to be?" It's, here's an empty barbell. This is barbell therapy. Show me what it looks like. Is it fucking gorgeous? Is it, you know, or is it technical, but they're doing lollipop reps? They're not actively pulling under the bar. They don't know what that feels like. Do you, heaven forbid, someone says, "I can't do this with an empty bar. It's too light." Like, I'd rather, please punch me in the face. Punch me in the face as hard as you can. It would hurt less than what you just said.
Got me deep. You cut me deep.
So we start there. With a lot of athletes, it's like, okay, move really, really well, because you're going to get to deadlift and you're going to get to back squat. We are going to move the needle on musculature and central nervous system. But man, it's like leaving the yeast out when you're baking bread or something. I don't know. Like, I've never baked bread. I feel like yeast is important. How important is yeast, guys? Yeah, that bread would suck, right? It'd be like that Atkins bread that you could smash a window with from back in the day. Fuck. You remember that?
That's what my body feels like right now.
Sherb and I are struggling a little bit right now. Bit. So to recap, in terms of your athlete IQ when it comes to weightlifting, we start with the baseline numbers. We need those. We need that information to be able to start. And then we're just super patient. We understand that it sucks worse to have another year where that lift is what left you off versus how bad does it really suck to be patient and practice for 4 phases, right?
Yeah.
Nitty gritty, people following phase 0 at misfitathletics.com. There will be 10 days over the course of 2 weeks where you either get to do a 1 rep max, or if you're like, I got a lot of my numbers, we have a similar lifting thing in there for you. So to give an example, find a 1 rep max from the Athlete IQ baseline list. You're going to be able to download that. You're going to see the lifts that we think you should have. First thing you should do, go in. Okay, I did this on this date, this on this date. I'm not going to fill this one in. It's been a little old or it's a little ugly. Need to update that. Or back squat 432 from 75 to 87.5%, and so on for those 10 days. How do we test? We got to talk about fitness. It's kind of important.
I was going to say one more thing about lifting if I could.
Yep.
If you are on the fence, do the 1 rep max. If you're like, I don't know if that was good last time I did it. I think it was good, but you're not sure. Talk to your peers, post in Discord, talk to your friends, review it. I mean, that's what's great about the community is you can ask your fellow misfits, be like, hey, what do you guys think of this? You know, that's something that has happened in Discord already. And, you know, something I would encourage an athlete to do if they're on the fence about whether or not their last back squat PR was all that pretty or all that good.
Got to ask, you can't afford it.
Great way to think of it. Yep. Got to do it again. Sorry. I mean, honestly, if you're on the fence, test this, figure out, do it right, do it well. It's going to translate later. Sorry.
The ZJ rule. So how do we test your athlete IQ when it comes to overall fitness? I think this is a really challenging topic for a lot of athletes. They go into the year. I don't understand why I feel this way and this sort of stimulus. I don't understand why, I can't improve on my muscle ups when there's rowing attached, whatever it is. So the way that we've broken this out is there are 12 Misfit Athletics benchmark workouts. The durations are short, medium, and long. And the stimulus that we have are muscle endurance, gas, cardio, and chippers. So that's 12 workouts that are written with the intention of you testing this type of stimulus. Now, the difference here is if we write a stimulus on the website, we are asking you to attack a workout in a specific way. When we test a stimulus, we hope you understand the best way to do it. But what we're saying is this is the type of workout that we are trying to improve with the stimulus where we're requesting something specific when you're actually training. Within the test, this is us saying, this is how bad it could get, or this is how easy this merry-go-round could get, and you're really going to have to figure out how to transition, all that good stuff. What I want to do is dig into all of the different ways that someone could go in and audit these things. We have already addressed probably the easiest way if you're going to follow phase 0 for your baseline testing. Share your scores, go into Discord, use the app, use SugarWOD, share scores, compare scores, talk to people, talk to other athletes that are in your similar demographic, find out, wow, I'm king shit at medium muscle endurance and I am the worst at the chippers. I am, so bad at cardio workouts, whatever it is, find that out. Because when you follow Misfit Athletics, maybe 1 or 0 of the Metcons or intervals are going to be mandatory on a given day. You're going to go in and it's going to say, pick, 0 to 2. You're going to look at it and okay, what's the duration on this? What's the stimulus? Then you can go in and say, that's the one that I sucked at. And we're going to give you more information here in a second on how to improve that. But if you know that, you can go in and create your own biased program through our programming without having to make that leap to remote coaching. And I think that's really important for a lot of athletes for multiple reasons. Might not have goals lofty enough for remote coaching, could be a financial thing, could be a time thing, whatever it is, we understand that. So we want to make sure everyone that doesn't sign up for that knows how to go in and personalize their own programming. And make sure you're paying attention. It says literally, this is your medium duration muscle overload stimulus benchmark test. Hunter had to type that in some variation 12 times.
Yep.
Very challenging.
Well, times 4 programs.
Times 4 programs. How many did you copy and paste?
All of them.
He typed them all. He typed them, every one of them.
He typed every single one of them, even though there's one word different in the one next to it.
All of them.
So you're going to see that, make a note of it. And then again, when you go in, when we're trying to get better at a medium muscle endurance, obviously it's important to have shorter ones that you go harder in, longer ones where you don't go as hard. It comes back to the middle. That's how things work. Give me some other examples of information that someone could get from these tests that they could use to get better at them.
I'm just looking at the one that right off the bat, the bumper cables. I don't know if we want to go through all the workouts, but we won't do that. But just in terms of do you learn that when the workout has distance machine work, does it pay to go at this pace or
give us some
pace? Yeah. Does it pay to start that workout at a 140, 500 meter split, or does it pay to be smart and go at a 145? 5 seconds. Is it worth it? At some point, would you break up the movement and lose those 5 seconds you gain in the first round of the workout? How did you transition in these things? Did you find that this combination of this movement affected that movement? There are so many different things you can take from this. And then if you get really nerdy with it, you can start digging out things like heart rate monitors. You can watch your video back and figure out which point did you start transitioning slower, or did your technique start to break down at? There's way more to this than just, it was hard and here was my time. And if you only look at the combination of, this is how long it took me and it was kind of hard and it felt like muscular overload and check, move on to the next one. There's a lot left on the table. And I have a thing I'm sending out to all my athletes who are not participating in the games this year that says, hey, here's the overview for what phase 0 is. Here are some things you should be thinking about during these workouts, but know that this list isn't anywhere near exhaustive. And if you have more ideas, come at me with them. Let's talk about them. And I really want to go through all of your selections and say, all right, what did you learn from this? And what can you take forward in the season? Because this is just setting the stage for what the rest of the year is like. And what's really cool about this is as these things come back up again, you can see how your deliberate practice has now led you to improve in what you've learned over the last bit. As you've improved your fitness, you're going to see dramatic changes in scores. But in order to do that, you have to take that extra level. Again, separating like the men from the boys again, you have to be willing to commit that much energy and effort to make that leap.
I think there are a lot of ways that you can kind of crack that nut. One is to take a look at your past open and quarterfinal scores. That's something that I do with a lot of athletes, like post, at the end of their respective season. It's like, why was workout 4 so much worse? Why was your performance here so much worse than the other ones? And a lot of those times, this is part of the reason that during like the open and quarterfinal podcasts, we say like, oh, this is a cardio workout, 21.1 box jump overs, dumbbell snatch, and wall walks, like cardio workout, so that you can hopefully kind of connect the dots between like, wow, that was really hard for me. Maybe I need to work on cardio stimulus workouts. And then you go into baseline testing or, throughout the year, and you see that cardio workout, and it's like, yeah, that is actually the thing. It's that specific stimulus that I'm not very good at. Maybe it's a duration thing. This is one thing that I worked with Kelly on. We kind of nitpicked a little bit between mostly just quarter and semifinals, like, hey, where are the gaps? And we kind of dialed it into a combination of a duration and a specific stimulus. And so now me as a remote coach, I can adjust training pieces. I can either just pick the optional one for her that is like, this is the one that you need to work on, or probably a little bit more advanced kind of individual athlete IQ. If you don't have the remote coach, is like, was this a movement specific thing that really kind of screwed me over here? Was it that I'm just really bad at handstand push-ups? And a lot of times it's not a movement, it's a fitness thing, but sometimes it is a movement, and kind of determining whether it was the movement, how many of them they were, basically trying to figure out, using other comparison kind of methods to figure out what you are actually struggling with is really important. Because just saying like, oh, I didn't do very well in the medium muscle overload test, so I must be bad at those things. It's like, maybe, but like you gotta dig a little bit deeper. Is it a movement thing? Was it a bad strategy? Was your strategy bad? Are you doing?
You can have the metabolic machinery to crush the test and fail.
Absolutely, yeah. Are you doing? Is every workout you do a gas tank workout because you're doing MFT when maybe you should be doing hatchet? Those sorts of things. Like, why do all these workouts feel like you guys are punching me in the throat every time? It's like, well, sometimes we are, but a lot of times we're not. It should feel a certain way. With the baseline testing, I would say that is slightly less important. It's only as important as you saying, okay, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Fast forward 20 minutes when I'm done with the workout, you're like, fuck, that is not what that felt like for me. Is it me or is it them? Like, and kind of analyzing that a little bit further. So I think you can really dive into these tests a few different ways. Between the information that we are giving you, what you know about yourself, you should hopefully be able to dial in, like, why was it that I was so much worse than all my peers in Discord or on SugarWOD at this specific workout? Or why did I do really well in this one?
Right. All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and hopefully save you a little bit of dough on our favorite products. Save you dough? What? 2 weeks for free at misfitathletics.com. You are listening to a podcast all about athlete IQ baseline testing. Phase 0 is 2 weeks long. So we made that free trial 2 weeks because we believe in what we do that much. We want to give that audition, sort of that job interview, from our side. Do you think that this is the type of program for you for the 2023 season? You can head to misfitathletics.com and try the entire Phase 0 for free. If you are on the affiliate side, if you go to an affiliate, if you own an affiliate, you can go to teammisfit.com and sign up for a free trial as well for our affiliate programming. Both programs are also in the SugarWOD marketplace if that's what you're into.
We're also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on any order. Last time we were on the podcast, we talked about how beneficial that Proper Pre is for this long Maffetone work we've been programming for weeks and weeks and weeks on Misfit Athletics. Common complaint that we get from people who typically use pre-workout is that they can't take it because they want to work out like after 3 o'clock, and they've heard us say over and over and over again that you shouldn't be consuming caffeine in the later half of the day because it's going to affect your sleep, which affects your next day of training. And next thing you know, you're in this death loop of never being able to ever use pre-workout, even though you know the benefits of it. So what's really great about Proper Pre is there is a stim-free version that we offer for you guys out there. And again, that is simply Proper Pre without caffeine in it. So you can take it in the later half of your day, still get all the benefits, the hydration, the beta alanine, all the other good components of pre, without staying up until 3 a.m. the next day, So again, head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit, check out that Proper Pre, specifically that stim free if you're someone who likes to work out in the back half of your day.
And you can head to sharpentheaxeco.com to check out the new Suffer apparel line. We got new joggers, new tie-dye tops and socks, and probably most importantly, 5 and 7-inch inseam shorts. So when the sun comes out,
what'd you go with?
Those thighs are going out. Well, I started with the 7. I'm slowly raising my thigh tan line up closer to the waistline.
Stop at 5, please.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for the Suffer Speedo next year for maximal high thigh tan line. Sharpentheaxeco.com. Use your favorite athlete's code. Help save yourself a little bit of money and hook them up with some cash as they head to Madison.
The best athletes in the world rely on each other and community to get better at CrossFit. For that reason, we have reverse engineered how they do that and why they do that, and created one of our training camps, one of 3 that we do every year, to be community based. It is for absolutely everybody, all athletes. If a coach wants to understand how this works, us being coaches and writing it, this is a very coach centric camp. So if you've ever wondered about coming to one of our training camps, but really sort of thought, well, I'm not a competitive athlete, should I go? This is very coach focused and will help you be able to, to coach at the affiliate level, competitive level, all that good stuff. That camp is August 19th through the 21st. Misfit.camp to purchase your tickets. We're gonna have a little extra fun because it is community based. There's going to be teams and camp counselors, and you're going to be able to sort of dig into that stuff. The lectures are going to be based on community. It's going to be fun. It's going to be informative. It's going to be great to see all of you again. Portland, Maine, Misfit HQ, misfit.camp. All right, back to the show. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the very first test. It's a muscle endurance test, and when we do that, we are intentionally running interference, typically on a muscle group. And that can be done through all 3 movements are similar, or it can literally just be,
I'm gonna make you do a lot of
check out this set of 50 strict handstand pushups or something like that. That's going to be muscle endurance for 99.99999% of people. Caroline. Yeah. Well, this is the only reason I didn't say 100%. So when you're looking at that, it's like, okay, Hunter referenced bad strategy. So we can go in and we can look at, and bad strategies are so easy to pick out. Your splits are all over the place, right?
Yep.
You go in, wow, round 1, amazing. Here's your gold star. And then here's your brown star for round 3.
Rounds of brown stars for sure.
like that typically, if you have a high athlete IQ, is obvious. And we all get those wrong sometimes. The C2 bike at the beginning of a workout, heart rate doesn't go up. Let's rev this baby up. You know what I'm saying? just give a little. 1700 wasn't a good idea. That's so weird. I don't understand.
That was an 18-minute workout that you just sabotaged.
Nice. It's also could just be your muscle up technique. It could be that typically strategy wise, when you are testing a muscle endurance workout, the higher athlete IQ will strategically break up a movement knowing that the person that goes unbroken, they can catch them because their transition sucks. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go 6 and 4 on these muscle ups, and I'm going to be back on the ski erg and at a better pace before you even start the ski erg, even though you went unbroken, right? That's the type of thing where we're talking about strategy versus technique versus understanding how to break up sets versus transition time, all of that. We've got a workout with medium duration cardio stimulus, and I won't give out exactly what it is, but it is row double under dumbbell snatch. We know that high level athletes will do the double unders unbroken and the dumbbell snatch unbroken. So that means that the only variable for the best of the best is how hard do you row during that workout.
And how quickly you transition.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So transitions are non-negotiable. The unbroken movements are non-negotiable. I think a lot of people work too hard in their unbroken movements. So there's also that. That can be an issue. You know, you do full spaz dumbbell snatch. It's very different than someone breathing through. You know, you see that person off to the side closing their eyes and it doesn't really look like they're doing anything. But so many athletes here, it's about how fast you row, and in their head, they hear the person who rows the fastest wins, instead of the person who knows how fast to row for 13 of the 14 minutes is the one who's going to win in the end. So again, these types of things I think can get misconstrued very easily. And it is how fast you can row, but it's how fast you can row. Yeah, it's how fast can you row? You know, can you hold 1,300 calories per hour for the entire workout, the whole thing with fast transitions and going through that? So higher athlete IQ, you've got a bit of a guess. You've done a lot, you get a lot of data collection. You know your time domains. You know if the other two movements are harder or easier than your row pace for that time domain. And then you make a decision on it. You err on the side of caution, probably. Knock it down between 50 and 100 calories per hour to start. Push those transitions really hard and check in with yourself 5 minutes in.
You know, what's great about a cardio workout too is if you are smart about your strategy there and you've kept something in the tank, you typically can push the end. What we see in a lot of cardio workouts is the inverse though. Push really hard at the beginning and fade and fade and fade and fade. So what you can, again, use this to now say, all right, I thought my push gear, or when I went from 4th to 5th gear in the workout, would be the last 2 minutes. Turns out I could have done it for 3, or I could have done it for 3:30, or I hit the gear too soon. I only have 90 seconds of that at the very end of the workout. So again, strategy is so individualistic, but what's great about this is that we're constantly guessing and checking, and then making sure that when we do that guess and check, that we really dive into why that happened. Was it the row pace? Was it your too fast of transitions? Did you work too hard in the dumbbell? And then you start to figure out these things, and now you can kind of recalibrate across the entire season. You know, I think it was phase maybe 4 that we had that same like wall ball rowing double under workout, and athletes had like tremendous improvements on that. Yes, it was fitness, but a lot of it was just like understanding what the workout is and what it's about. And that's a really big part of, these next 2 weeks is figuring out what workouts are, and you're not left to do the guesswork. We're telling you what they are. So now you can hopefully use that to inform your strategy as you go to approach the workout.
But coach, how will I know what pace to do on machines?
We'll get there.
Oh, I was trying to give you a clever segue.
True or
underhand.
True or false? Chippers are IQ tests, not athlete IQ tests. Chippers are IQ tests.
I mean, sure.
True.
Sure.
They really put a magnifying glass on whether you understand your own personal capabilities, how movements interact with each other, and because the stimulus it's not on the elemental chart, right? It's floating around. We got one called Fairy Dust that Hunter wrote, and it goes in every possible direction. It's a treasure map that zigs and zags and up, down, left, right, goes everywhere. It's intended to be an equalizer type workout. This person likes this movement and this person likes this movement and I like this movement. Yeah, well, they're all in there. So congratulations. You're going to get something that you like. Are you going to bury yourself on the movement that you like? You got a set of 15 muscle ups in that bad boy and you're like, dun, 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 and then you come in last. So those are really, I think, really important and potentially a bit more high level than the other 3 in terms of I'm testing not only my fitness, but what I understand about myself, what I understand about the workout, all that. So there's a reason why someone whose nickname is the professor in CrossFit, and he usually wins every chipper, whether it's a big guy workout, a not a big guy workout, that sort of thing. Take the time to break the chipper out. You would not believe what you can do for the highest level athlete when you sit down with a marker and just go, well, these typically take this long. So now you've gotten this long into the workout. You thought you'd be here at this point. You're not going to be there at that point. You're huffing and puffing from this. You really break that out. You pull their athlete IQ out of them. They know a lot of stuff, but when they see, you know, depending on the type of thinker you are, the type of learner you are, if you see this laundry list, you know, this trash heap, does your brain just go like, so sitting down with a marker, I understand how long this typically takes. Okay, so I've added it all up. This is the time domain. I've got some monostructural movements in there. What could these paces look like? What happens if I slow down? You know, got to know as an athlete that if it's a short distance row, your pace means almost nothing. Yep. So there are just sort of little nuances there. And I think people should take the IQ portion of athlete IQ testing literally when it comes to this. Take the extra time, break it out, grab your training partners, get the whiteboard out, argue over how long certain things are going to take. And then you can get a real feel for, I'm going to let this person, I'm going to talk them into going out hot. I'm just going to sit back and watch and just be able to sort of walk past that.
Well, it's just funny. Like it always brings me back to the conversations I have with my remote athletes. And it's like, I think a lot of people get into the remote coaching element with like, all right, they're going to come up with the perfect combination of things that I need to make me the fittest person on earth. And like, yeah, we're going to consider what you need to be doing day in and day out. But a lot of this stuff is just like what you just said. Let's talk literally through every single movement, determine, I don't know if the phrasing you use, it's like individual cadence versus natural cadence. Is that right? Like which movements can only get done this fast? Which movements are 100% about how hard you go? How many seconds does that mean? What does that mean for the next movement? And that like really is how an athlete should break down their day-to-day training. And a big part of the, you know, athlete IQ stuff I have for the athletes going into this phase is like, you should literally do what you just said. Sit down with every single workout you're about to do and sketch them out. Ask yourself, how do you feel when you do this? How long will it take you? What will the next movement feel like? What would your strategy be like if you did this versus if you did that? Like those layers that we're talking about trying to create. And again, don't feel like you have to know all of these things right off the jump, but start with pick one of those elements this first time you do it. And the next time you do it, pick two of the elements. And over time, you develop that like toolkit of like what you need to be thinking about when you go into a workout. And the next thing you know, you are thinking on the level that we typically think about workouts. And, you know, that is going to allow you to now say, all right, body, let's perform. My mental game is where it needs to be. Now it's about, all right, let's go put forth that plan and see what happens, as opposed to like, let's throw this shit against the wall, see if it sticks.
Final stimulus to cover is the gas stimulus. It's an interesting stimulus because we are intentionally trying to create a trap for you. We're giving you really large ranges of motion. Oftentimes, like for instance, cupcake lungs. If you had programmed this workout 10 years ago, AMRAP 8 minutes, 8 bar facing burpees, 8 power snatch at 95, a lot of people would look at that and be like, psh, easy. They would get quite a few rounds in 3 or 4 minutes, and then they would do nothing for the rest of the workout. Now, collectively, the athlete IQ of the CrossFit community has changed quite a bit. And the spectrum here goes all the way from it is a trap, it's a trick, don't look at it that way, to what we would consider CrossFit enlightenment, where you can turn a gas stimulus into a cardio workout. You are quite literally the fittest man or woman on earth, or you're in the running for that. And you can take something that we have decided is just a little bit too much to not strategically break apart. And you show us this is a cardio stimulus. It's kind of a watch this moment. It's the peak of, you know, the top of the top when it comes to fitness. And what's really fun is one of these benchmarks is 11 years old. And the times on it have changed a ton. And for multiple athletes, this is pretty close to a cardio stimulus, which is really fun to think about. And it's, you know, it's not some secret. Penny's was the original benchmark. It's sort of 4 rounds for time, 6 squat cleans at 225, 155, 6 muscle ups, not 6 muscle ups, 6 squat cleans, Hunter. Then run 400 meters. It's not 4 rounds because it's a run sandwich. There is no 4th run at the end. That workout was a behemoth in 2011 when it was written.
A sub 20 challenge when you first started doing it.
And first tested. And now it's very much how hard can you go? Like if you're doing this workout and it's not what we would consider unbroken, I get that touch and go, you don't get any points for the way down. But if your hands aren't going right back on the barbell, there's a pretty good chance that you should be following the hatchet version of this workout.
Which is the same.
It's 225.
Fuck yeah, it is. Goodness. Just program that for affiliates.
All right, fair enough.
We didn't change it. We did put some like notes in there. One thing you guys will see for the hatchet program is that there are some further modifications down on all of those training pieces. So there are like some additional modifications, but because it's the original Misfit Athletics benchmark and people like me and Sure did it when we were definitely not qualified to do it in 2012.
Thought I was though. Way back then for sure. I was like definitely qualified for this.
I think it's one of those
hatchet is based on your 1 rep max.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. So
fair.
Yeah. It's just one of those tests that I think anybody who's done the open workout,
so then you
like
can
most of the open workouts, as prescribed, you can chip away at this, and then it's good to see where you stack up relative to. I think it's a really, really good, well-rounded test. So
it is.
It's if you think
still hard,
think you're a champ, like.
And that's the thing. The more we go from it's a trap to CrossFit Buddha is all the way on the side there, the more we can to really express fitness, we put you in a pile. If that was at the CrossFit Games,
oh my God,
how hard they would run, that would be freaking incredible to watch.
A couple of 150.
Because we've seen it, we've done it at enough training camps to see like when you're not doing that 400, you're not doing the lonely lap, and no one sees where you're at and what you do, and if there's a turnaround, how long that takes, that sort of thing.
A lot of 10-minute mile runs happening, and
so what?
Myself included.
All right, last but not least, we have our monostructural tests. At Misfit Athletics, we call it bitch work. On the athlete IQ sheet, I believe it says monostructural. If you're new and you're downloading something and it seems like we're swearing at you, we're not. So it says
we kind of are.
We can. Hunter is swearing at you.
Yeah,
Hunter is swearing at you. I just want you to know that they're monostructural tests. So the way that works is halfway, I would say, sort of halfway between us picking your stimulus for you like we do within the workouts and the lift. The lift is very much, here's this whole list, go get after it. With the monostructural tests, we are going into a specific time domain, what we consider a specific stimulus energy system, and listing out all of the machines that are within that. So it'll say something like run 5K, ski 5K, row 5K, bike 10K, that sort of thing. And you're going to go in and choose. Those repeat themselves twice. So if you are looking at that list and you're saying to yourself, oh man, I don't have this one or this one, it's okay. On the same day as week 1, in week 2, you're going to get an opportunity to see that list again. So understand that when you are going through and you're highlighting the things that you don't have on your athlete IQ benchmark list, downloadable PDF that we'll have for you guys, you're going to get another opportunity to do that. Now, what happens if an athlete has more of the shorter time domain and doesn't have as much of the longer stuff? You can sort of go your own way a little bit with this, but if you are putting in zone 4 and zone 5, 40-minute to 60-minute tests back to back to back, you're going to fry yourself. Try to spread those out. Swap them in for a math session instead, that sort of thing. Do not go in and say, I don't have any of my tests that are an hour long. I'm doing 2 today, 2 tomorrow, 2 the following day. That's not going to go so well. This is the most important column on here by far. It is so important for everybody to know this. We'll get into why. We'll get into trying to create the Iron Man heads up display when you don't have the screen, all of that. But when you follow our programming, the monostructural work will say you need to start at your 5K pace and work towards your 2K pace. If you do not have that information, if you are guessing, this stuff is not going to go very well. And over the course of a phase and then over the course of an entire year, you are going to get to find out how good you are for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, all of these ranges. I'm going to put you through every single one of those ranges on every single machine in different stimulus. So less rounds, more rest, more rounds, less rest. So we transition sort of, move that slider over. Is it aerobic? Is it anaerobic? And you having that information and knowing where you stand within that completely changes both your athlete IQ and your energy systems. Those two things come together, you become that version of yourself that you're pretty sure exists down there somewhere. I don't understand why I'm not getting better. A lot of people that's strategy based, a lot of people that's, not doing their math every single time it's on a machine or it's running, it's balls to the wall and then, falling off, all of this stuff. This information is so incredibly important because, and you guys are going to know better than me. I mean, when you get done a C2 machine session, list off the information that you could have from that.
RPMs, pace, convert that to different metrics. What's
calories per hour, wattage, 500 meters,
wattage, heart rate, effort. I mean, like within, say it's a longer duration. What do your splits look like across an interval?
Damper settings.
What's your damper setting? What's your seat
breathing
height?
like?
What's your
heart rate like?
Echo bike and assault somewhat similar. You got to know the metrics that you stare at more, but I don't like it when an athlete says, oh, I don't use wattage, I use RPMs. The thing that sticks into my head is, for me as an athlete, I'm like, I'm going to start watching RPMs more. Like, because there are some metrics that bounce up and down a little bit faster. Mm-hmm. And there's some metrics where, like, if you're on the assault runner, I find that looking at speed is the easiest one because it kind of sticks a little bit easier. The problem with that is it means nothing without context. Exactly. Unless you've done the conversions to understand sort of where that's coming from. Super high athlete IQ, the best of the best, would write down every metric that they get from a session. It was this wattage, it was this calories per hour, it was this RPMs, it was this 500 meter or 1K split. You should write down every one of those things. You should know what they feel like because we are going to ask you to test them. And there's no reason why. I mean, in the endurance community, watts are king. Who's to say that we're not going to go to an event that's sponsored by Concept 2 or some endurance company and they're going to do a wattage output test? They're going to put you on a machine and do the test that they do for the cyclists, and it's average wattage for 60 minutes, whatever it is. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but just imagine going into something like that and they don't let you rotate the screen. You have absolutely no fucking clue what speed you're at. I don't know. Is this a 120? Is this a 220? I don't know. It feels kind of shitty. It feels a little bad. Like,
well, I think it's really important too, is that we typically make sure that when we do like monostructural work, you're going to do maybe a few rounds of it. Why would you want to do a 5 round? Let's say it's 5 minutes by 5. You do it 5 times. You got to take 2 or 3 rounds to figure out what your pace is. Well, there's 2 or 3 rounds you just gave away to your competition or gave away to a version of yourself who cared a little bit more, had a little bit higher athlete IQ, and got 5 awesome sessions in instead of 3. And then what we definitely don't want you to do is to make that like, oh shit, he said I got to do 2 extra. No, because now you're affecting your ability to recover that day, which matters day on, day on, and day on. And again, you'll know when it's time to be in, zone 2 versus zone 3 versus zone 4 and zone 5, and knowing what these things do so that you're not giving away some of your training trying to figure things out. Because again, brand new to CrossFit, you're experimenting, great. But a lot of you follow this because you did CrossFit, you found it, you liked it, you wanted to be better at it, and now you're, obsessed with trying to be the best version of yourself. Well, the best version of yourself doesn't just try really hard in workouts. They're obsessed with all of these details and learning that, like, I thought that the 150 was the right split, but turns out my average was a 146, which means maybe the first 2 weren't, they could have been. So again, that's why this is so important, because you need to know this information so you're not doing extra volume for volume's sake, but you're also getting really good work done and realizing that really good work doesn't always mean that you're in a puddle on the floor gasping for air. But sometimes when we're doing C2 bike pieces, might not look like we're trying all that hard, but we're trying hard because we're trying to hold something very specific. Thinking back to like something we just had on the website for the games athletes on Comp Block 3 with the 4x4K C2 bike. Like, that's not meant to be sprint 4K as hard as you can once and then see what happens in rounds 2, 3, and 4. It's like, what can you hold in round 1 and how close can that be to round 2? How close can that be to round 3 and then round 4? That's really good work. Doesn't always mean the split is sexiest and you didn't have the best score in the workout, but I'm going to go ahead and bet that the person who was more deliberate with keeping their splits tight is the fitter athlete than that person who can just show up and do one really cool one. And then, I left after that. It's good enough.
Right. And when you read that, I gave you guys basically no rest on purpose. Like that was the point of that. It's like, okay, we need to know if you do get stuck in something that is longer duration, what does that effort sort of feel like? And I think that's the segue into that heads up display. How often, and I just want you guys to guess, don't actually like think through each one. Did athletes get to see a monitor screen from the open through semifinals?
Like 2 or 3 out of what would that be? Like probably 15 events.
Yeah.
15 to 20 events.
They're incredible training wheels in training. I didn't mean to double up on training there. That didn't go the way that I wanted it to, but they really are. If when you take those bad boys off, you say to yourself, okay, this workout is probably going to feel like the session that we did the other day on this machine, this many minutes on, this many minutes off, that sort of thing. Now I know what my effort should be. What can I hold? Was I ever gasping for air in that workout? Were my legs ever filled with acid in that workout? That sort of thing. And when they were, did I surprise myself by being able to keep going? Or was it like, oh shit, this is a bad idea? Those feelings create that heads up display, which is more like it's a bit subjective. You've got your heart rate, which you should know sort of what the different heart rates feel like. You've got, sort of maybe like a muscle meter when it comes to your lower body. Like, oh man, I am pushing this to the point where like there's no rest period in this Metcon. So if I have to duck walk, over, off, and not straighten my legs or whatever to get to that next movement, is that going to be a good idea? Am I going to be able to go over there and do something? And I think the best athletes in the world are just so in tune with their physiology that they know what they are supposed to feel like. And it's amazing because if you're going to follow Misfit Athletics 2023, hours upon hours upon hours on those machines. And those can be really meaningful hours, or those can just be a box that you check off and say, I did what you asked. What's wrong here? You
got to kind of think about the bitch work tests as your energy system and time domain kind of like calibrators. So anytime you go into an open workout that is 21.1 again, cardio stimulus, 15 minutes. What does that look like on a machine? What is a 15 minute effort on a rower or a bike look like? And what is kind of your upper limit, your threshold, whatever that is? And how can I use that information to translate it to a workout where I have 0 movements that actually give me that literal heads up display, where I can't actually see what my pace is like, but I can compare this to either a feeling, or maybe it's a 20-minute AMRAP that does have a rower in it or something like that. And it's like, well, like you need to row at this pace every time you get on the rower. And then you could probably just like kind of extrapolate that, well, if I can, let's say this is a 20-minute AMRAP, one of the 3 movements is a rower. Well, I guess that's probably pretty similar to a 5K row effort across, the totality of this work. And that's where I think a lot of athletes get kind of jammed up, because it's like, that's all it's testing. You just don't, the thrusters and pull-ups, you can't see what you're, whether I'm thrustering and pull-upping at a 150 per 500 meter pace, or am I being a reckless idiot here, or am I going too slow here? But you want that information to kind of like be able to almost set your baseline for other, maybe more sport-specific tests.
The best athletes will pick out the trick and see the repeated workout in the next phase and say to themselves, man, I nailed it. 148s, that was what I had. I'm going for 147s today. The best athletes will do that. And like, I'm trying to think of an analogy. Like if you showed up at Drew's Candy Shop and you look around and there's like colors everywhere, and there's pinwheel lollipops, and there's this color and there's that color, and there's, the ribbons, and then this, guess what? It's literally all sugar. It's the only ingredient that's in there. So when you see that I asked you for this time domain in an AMRAP, and then this meter distance, and then this many calories, True, this is true. Welcome to my candy shop, son. They're all the same. And you need to notice that, right? Part of it is selling. Part of it is, I'm going to make you guys just do the same workout over and over and over. There is nuance to a calorie workout versus, a row pace. But I want you to be able to go in and see that 60 calories at this pace equals this distance. And that son of a bitch is still just selling me candy. This one's pinwheeled. That one was brown. Whatever it was. Yeah. So being able to notice that and go in and again, attack it and have that information. To the wrong athlete, that sounds monotonous. To the right athlete, it's like, fuck yeah, I get to go attack this again. And like, that hurt last time, I'm going to go even faster this time.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like weakness work where, if you have a weakness, you should be excited about that because there's room on the table to grow. There's something left out that you don't have. The same goes for athlete IQ. If you don't know how this workout goes or what that pace means or how you're going to feel there, you should be excited about the opportunity to learn that stuff. And if you are, one of the misfits out there that are crazy like us, like you love that information because that makes you a more well-rounded athlete, which allows you to push your potential, which is what a lot of you are after here. So if you don't have that information, don't look at it and be like, no detail is too small. Like anything you can take from a workout that you can then think later on the road, this might help me, write that down. I think one of the most beneficial things that I've seen Caroline do is, a lot of the journaling. I see her doing that type of stuff after a workout. And like, if it's left open somewhere, it's not just time split. That's how I broke up my reps. It's more than that. It's how the breathing felt, how this went, how that went, what the day was like. And that type of stuff allows you to call upon, was it just one bad day because you had a bad night's sleep the night before? And like, this is something where like, you shouldn't be too concerned about. You had one bad rowing workout, or is it a pattern that you need to address? And all right, how can I fix these things moving forward? Because again, nothing is too small to record if it's going to help you become a better athlete.
Yeah. It's not final thoughts yet, but one of the ways to wrap it up that I think could potentially make people feel better is when we observe our high level athlete training camps, when they come in to prep for semifinals games, whatever it is, they get done a workout and they are so excited to tell each other, I did 7 and 2. You did 7 and 2? I did 6 and 3. That's crazy. You did wow, that's not the same number as what you just said. They dig into, they nerd out and are legitimately excited to talk about these things. Like I noticed that I was at 204 when I got off this and moved into this. And I noticed that I had to drop my pace from here to here. How the heck did you hold 890 calories per hour once we were 38 minutes into this, whatever it was? Like they nerd out over that stuff. We cultivate that. We ask for it. We make sure that it happens. We try to go into that. And you're thinking to yourself, like, this sounds either monotonous or whatever. There's a reason why. So we do 3 training camps a year. Our next training camp is all based on community. And you would think that was more about, let's get all the misfits in town so they could get to know each other. That's an amazing benefit of it. But all of our lectures are going to be redone into a way where you can figure out how to use other people to move forward as an athlete or a coach. And for us to be able to put someone into that, it's like, okay, this thing that sounded terrible that you felt alone with and my pace sucks or whatever, when you get into a group like that, when you find a group like that on Discord, Instagram, within your affiliate, wherever it is, on the blog, when you do that, you start to create those muscles, and it's not a fucking coincidence that those are the best athletes in the world. They're all into it. They all talk about it. So we are trying to recreate that for you. Side note, it's human evolution. It's fun to be around other people that, sets off a bunch of cascades of hormones within your body. Like it's really good for you. It's great that that's a benefit, but also makes you better at what you do. And we take that very seriously. When we see a common factor of the best in the world, we try to reverse engineer it and get it out to as many people as possible. And that's how you make the things that we're talking about that sound like, oh, really? Cool. That's how you turn them into, wow, that was really fun. Like I just got done a nasty workout and I got to, compare scores with people and do this and that. That was super fun. It's not shitty anymore. It's great.
I think the only thing to add before we kind of wrap up is like yeah, there's a lot of information to be gleaned from the tests themselves and to use as far as like the more nitty gritty details, but from maybe a little bit more kind of dry, boring perspective, every single phase, basically almost every bitch work piece that we program gives you a pacing recommendation, like X number of seconds faster or slower than your known 5K row, for example. So more kind of like, to circle back, like part of the reason these bitch work tests, time trials, like baseline IQ things exist is so that when it is phase 2, week 2, day 3, and you're just like, you have to row a bunch of 1Ks at your 2K PR pace or something like that. Like you have to know what that is. So that ultimately, like, we're giving you the opportunity to test these things. Again, same idea with the strength work. Like, oh, I haven't done a 2K row since my affiliate class. It's like, yeah, sorry, that's
due.
The time is now. So,
speaking of which, Hunter, when will you be doing your 2K row? I'm gonna be there for that.
I don't do those anymore.
Oh, okay, just wondering.
Retired.
You're willing to go that as hard as you just did for a 5K row, and you don't want to do a 2K?
Come on, man.
No, definitely not.
Come on, man.
Fucking way harder. 2K row.
Let us know if you want Hunter to do it.
Physically, yes, but physical pain is so much easier than mental pain.
Fuck, that's really hard to try that hard for 7 minutes.
What did you hold for your 149? For your 5K?
My 5K?
Yeah.
It was 149 and a half.
And you don't dare to do a fucking 2K.
I ain't doing it. I'm not fucking leaving.
I just thought to myself, I'm burying myself. I'm not doing it either, so I should probably shut the fuck up. Final thing that I can think of for anybody that's joining us for phase 0 for the first time at Misfit Athletics, there are 4 opportunities to get used to the Maffetone. Mondays and your rest day and the active rest day that you choose. You're going to get an opportunity to do that. For a lot of people, they're in the groove with that right now. We don't want to take them out of it. It is optional. You don't have to do it. So if you're looking for a little break there, it's not like if you don't use it, you lose it moment for 2 weeks. It's not going to be a big deal, but the opportunities are in there if you want to stay in the groove or if you've never seen that before. And if you don't understand the description, I think the amount of times we've said MAF or Maffetone within the last year in articles, podcasts, whatever.
That's all we say.
Yeah. We should be getting some sort of sponsorship or something like that.
Come on, Phil.
What did I call him in that podcast? Pete, Dave. Mike, Dave, Donnie.
Dave Maffetone.
Big Phil.
Steve Maffetone.
All right. I'm super pumped to get this started. Obviously, we're going to be out at the CrossFit Games coaching. We'll be checking in on Discord, at night, sort of going back and forth with duties a little bit there. But we talk about this enough that we had to figure out a way to build it into the season. And we've got a nice 2-week gap between Comp Block 3 and Phase 1 where we think people are going to be able to get enough information that, if used properly, could completely change your season. If you're sort of taking the advice that we're putting out there, listening to the phase podcast that we have for 1, 2, 3, and 4, digging into the content, all that stuff.
It's also nice to get kind of back into the groove after a couple of phases of a little bit more GPP style programming where it's a little bit less, I don't want to say less structured, but as we kind of ramp back up into phase 1, these 2 weeks serve really nicely to kind of get you back into a little bit more structure and just kind of get you set up for success for phase 1.
Anything else?
Final thought is I know a lot of people look at these tests and having called upon past experience, they get a little nervous. I mean, even talking about the 2K in the room right now kind of changed the mood in the room.
Oh, I got to check my stress monitor, although it says says I died like 3.5 hours ago. So,
but what I was going to say here is that if you really do care about moving the needle in your fitness, you have to know these things and you have to try. I think you like to love to say that in class. If you tried trying,
hey, you could try.
You try trying. But again, if you really do,
you tried going faster.
Have you tried going faster?
But if you really care about knowing where you're at and how do you figure out where you're going to go, you have to take this stuff super serious. And I know that again can create some apprehension ahead of like having done one of these tests before, but go head first into it, give your best effort, and if you do that, you will be setting yourself up for a much more successful training year. So hop on board.
Don't piss into the wind all year. Follow misfitathletics.com. Is that our battle cry? Ted,
Yes.
can we get a
That's the 2023 tagline. Stop pissing into the wind, idiot.
Oh goodness. Did we do it?
We're done. And I hope this guy keeps hammering away here.
All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. And thank you to our show sponsors. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com right freaking now and get the Suffer Summer collection. Why don't you go ahead and use your favorite Misfit Games athletes code. If you follow them on Instagram, you'll know typically the first name. Sometimes it's the last name. For Caroline, it's literally not her name. Any name that she has. Her name is not Carol, surprisingly enough to a lot of people. Sharpentheaxeco.com. Use your favorite athlete code, properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit to save on any and all orders. And obviously, misfitathletics.com. Guess what? You can try Phase Zero the entire 2 weeks for free. You can go in, see what this is all about, check it out. Absolutely no risk whatsoever. You can go in and do Phase Zero, get your athlete baseline testing, and then decide if you're going to join us, if you dare to join us for Phases 1, 2, 3, and 4 and crush your 2023 season. All right. We'll see you next week.